Welcome to our second edition of the LIR Mastermind. Thank you guys for coming. I think last time, I don't know if we introduced ourselves, but let's do it this time for anybody that's on the Zoom or that's in the brokerage that kind of doesn't know who's sitting on this panel. These are people that you should know. Zito, if you can't start, and we'll just move to your right.
Anthony Zito.
Gotcha.
Erica Perez.
All right.
George Castle.
Sean Dell.
Saeed Hammond.
Cool. And I'm Maurice Negron, if you guys don't know me. TNT. That's how we do it. So today's discussion is going to be on how to cultivate relationships and your sphere of influence to build a successful business, right? So, last time we kind of touched on a lot of like getting back to basics and certain things in your business with the market turning. And a big part of our business is referrals and just kind of, in relationships. I feel like, in the real estate business, a huge pillar is relationships, right? The people you meet, the people you're able to touch, previous deals that you've done with other agents and or just, your own clients. So I wanted to, touch on this topic. It was something that I actually talked to Shondell about. Thank you, Shondell. We pushed back and forth some ideas on, what we should discuss. And this was a good one that came up. So, let me just leave it out there general in terms of what do you guys think are strategies that you guys use to cultivate relationships and to cultivate like your sphere of influence and your business as you progress moving forward. Anybody?
So one of the things that I find a lot of your buyers become your listing agents. I mean, your listings, right? So every year that my clients, it's the year that they sold their house, I have an anniversary, reminder on my CRM that reminds me to call them back and say, hey, happy 1-year anniversary.
Right.
Are you interested in knowing what your house is worth along the lines? You actually have a little conversation. How's the family? How's it going with the house? A lot of multi-family homes are saying, hey, I'm ready to buy my single family.
Right.
So one of the touch points that I like to use with my sphere of influence is knowing when they bought the house, how much they bought it for, and every year have a recurring that it just reminds me to call them and say, hey, happy anniversary. If they don't pick up, I'll shoot them a text with a funny meme. So one of the things with sphere of influence is super important is that's continued business, because if it's not them, it's somebody else. But I would say the last 2 years, most of the properties I listed, which were more than I've ever listed, was because I was just calling to say, hey, happy anniversary.
Nice. Making some touch points,
Yes.
with the people that are around you and like previous those that's you've done. Anybody else can speak to it?
I'll piggyback on that. So what I noticed now with social media, how they have the timeline memories with Facebook. When I go to the closing, right, I take the picture that day of the closing.
Right.
So now what I've been doing is when I see the memory pop up, I screenshot the picture, I send them a text, congratulations, 1-year anniversary. I feel like it's kind of like a cool memory, especially for like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You see each other, you probably haven't seen each other in a long time. So sending that picture of us together a year, 2 years ago reminds them, of that time when they closed on the house.
Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha. Let me ask you guys one other thing. I think like I remember starting out as a new agent, and I remember like being told like, hey, look, you got to call your sphere, right? You got to call the people around you. And I kind of felt a little weird about it, right? It's like, call your aunt, call your grandmother, whatever. It's just like it felt so random to, like to call them and kind of, really big a touch point with them to let them know like, hey, look, I'm in business, I'm doing real estate. Do you guys know anybody that's buying or selling or need to make a real estate move? I'd say what kind of strategies or good advice that you could give, like maybe a newer agent, an agent that just joined a brokerage, on how to attack their sphere of influence like that?
So that's actually where it begins. You guys raised great points, right? But that's for an existing business. That's, once we're up and running, right? For someone just starting out, like you said, that's exactly where you start. So, just to give you an example, I've been licensed for 16 years. I've been doing it full time for probably the last 10. I operate 100% off a referral. I probably do, 10 million a year minimum. I don't pick up the phone. I do not cold call. I don't do anything. All of the business comes to me. And that comes from the sphere, right? So it came from my mother, my brother, family, immediate family, different types of relationships that we have. I cultivated those relationships at the beginning. I had no choice. And now, 10 years later, this is where I am, right? Well, 16, right? But I've been doing it full time for the last 10, and this is where I am. My brother's a retired police captain in North Bergen. So, the North Bergen Police Department, that was a huge part of my business. My mother was also in real estate part-time, right? So my mother was a retired judicial secretary. So she worked for the assignment judge for Hudson County for, probably about 20 years. That judge, the assignment judge, is the judge that runs Hudson. So, happenstance, just from a child, a lot of, the attorneys that I use now and I have relationships with, they've seen me in the courthouse since I was a child. They know who my mother is. So when I called them and said, listen, I'm doing real estate, my mother made me make these calls, right?
Right.
Same thing, 25-year-old, 28-year-old kid, you don't really want to make them, but you make them. And, hey, John, I haven't seen you forever, but just want to let you know I'm doing real estate. Well, I have something I think, you may be able to help me with, right? And that first attorney gave me a shot. And then it gets easier and easier as you go. But it all comes from, listen, whatever you have access to. So it could be, someone in your family could be a hotel worker, right? They could be a doorman, they could be in the 1199 union in the city, right? Make that connection. Sell one person in the building, one of the employees wants to move to Jersey from New York or something, you sell them a house. Then you sell a second one and the third one a house. After the second or third one, you go to the union directly. I mean, the union refers attorneys out, right? The attorneys represent, them for free on the transaction if they need it. They can recommend mortgage lenders, things like that. Why can't they recommend the realtor? Whoever the head of the union is, hey, just want to let you know, I just represented 3 of your employees on transactions. They went great. Here are their testimonials. Here are their Zillow reviews. I'm in New Jersey, so if you have anyone in 1199, that's something I did, by the way. I think they have over 500 employees in New York City, right? So if you have anyone in 1199 that contacts you that's thinking of moving to New Jersey, I'd be more than happy to, represent them. And again, here are testimonials from your current employees that I represent.
Nice.
Touching secretaries, things like that. Like that's very big. So, these are just a few ways to kind of, think outside the box and jumpstart the business.
Great.
To add to what he's saying, I always say your first sphere of influence is your cell phone, A to Z. Get on the phone, A to Z, and those are your first sphere of influence. They know you. They're in there, they know who you are, and those are your first clients that you should start working with. And that's how you continue to grow your book of business. So I would say the very first thing to do is your cell phone, A to Z. That's your first book of business.
Got you.
Well, same as him, I used, like your mom, I used to work at the courthouse. I met a lot of landlords, you guys know I do a lot of rentals. And that's how I actually started building my clientele. By getting myself out there. Hey, I have a whole bunch of rentals available. If you guys need, I can represent you as a landlord. Every time I go out there and I see someone that's in front of a new construction, I go, hey, I can rent your property. If you already have a destination, I can also rent it out for you. So that's another way to also, build relationships.
Nice.
I think also with social media, with newer agents, especially with lifestyle, every week we get those emails from Alicia, I think it is, that she creates the templates for us, just listed, just sold under contract. And even if you don't have any business and you're new to the company, you can just use our listings, like we've been in the business, we're here now, but we were there at one point. Take our listings and start posting it. Your sphere of influence is also your social media. So these are people that see your posts all the time. Just take that, and one, it makes you look like you're killing it already. But the two, in reality, you are working with the same listing company as we are, right? We're all one company. So by using our property, you can advertise it to the people around you. And somebody might say, hey, how much is that house, right? It might not be that house for them, but you start that conversation. Oh, this is this much. Oh, that's too much. Okay, well, what are you looking for? Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. I feel like with sphere of influence, some people are afraid to ask. I think that it makes it easier if you also provide value. So it's like you're not just asking for business, you're also giving value. So if you're posting something, you're showing people things that they might not be seeing, that's value. If you're making those calls or you're offering to somebody to lease something, you can say, look, I'll rent this out for you at no cost to you. Why? Because you're going to charge the tenant. It's not that you're doing it for free. You're doing it for something, but they don't know that, right? It's just like whatever, when you ask for something, try to provide value, and that'll make it a little easier.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that. So sphere of influence rewards like action. They want to see that if you go to your aunt and tell her like, oh yeah, auntie, I'm just in the business and can I list your house? She's gonna say no. But if she see Maurice just listed 10 other houses and he got them over what they wanted, then Auntie's coming to you and say, list my house, right? So like, it's important for you to be active, to talk about what you're doing whenever you're around. For example, like, you know, for me, it was a little different. Like I did all the cold calling, the door knocking. I was really doing in the trenches. But once I was doing that and posting that and actually going through, then my sphere started coming to me as the guy, because they seen like, okay, he's really out here doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I would get my family together, like my cousins, they're like, oh, we want to buy this property or that. So I would get them together and just talk about real estate. So whenever they see a board up or anything, my cousins will call me, they'll call me, you know, and I'm talking from an investor standpoint, but like, it's still the same way from, you know, to get listeners.
Correct. No, I mean, it's good that you touched on the investor part, because I kind of wanted to ask you, you know, like either you or definitely like George, you guys, you know, do a good amount of like working with investors. And I think it'd be good for, you know, for people to understand and hear like what it's like to build relationships, but from different standpoints. Like I know working with investors, or like maybe even working with like landlords, like what is that perspective like, you know, building those relationships, and what is it like kind of like cultivating and keeping that going? Like maybe an investor that, you know, is constantly feeding you property, or you're pushing them property and you guys are doing deals, you know, consistent, you know, an investor maybe that's doing 5 to 10 deals a year, 15 to 20 deals a year. And maybe you guys can shed some light on what that's like, you know, like cultivating that relationship.
Right. So for me, it was always providing the deal, right? Whether I was either like wholesaling a deal or just having deals to send to provide value. Whether or not they bought it or not was irrelevant. Was the fact, okay, I got these 2 properties, come take a look at it. And then they were always, oh, you got more. Give me, you know the conversation. Oh, give me everything you have. I'll take it all.
I'll
Right.
close in 7 days.
But within that, now I have a plethora of investors that I can call at any given time to see, again, what they have going on, what they need help with. So that happens again by providing value, right? I always tell people the power is in the deal. And this is from the investor side, the power is in the deal. So regardless of what, if you have money, I don't care how much money you have, if you have no deal, then you don't have anything, right? So like, you know, if you want to really do business with investors, get deals. So work with, you know, start really researching board ups and really going straight to the homeowner. And then you can add value. If you're not gonna rehab it yourself, at least now you're adding value to an investor that you can now rent their property, you find the deal. Once it's fixed up, you can flip it, you can list it for them, you can rent it out for them. So that's how you really build relationships. To me, it's always by add value first, and then you can ask.
So, I mean, I'll come from it, honestly, from the opposite side. So like, I never found the deals for my clients, and I work with investors. And the reason why I did it was because of, I guess what I did bring to the table was like land use experience. So being able to tell an investor, like, you can find somebody a deal, not you, but like somebody can find somebody a deal just that they happen upon, but they might see it and not know what they could do with it, right? So when an investor comes to me, he's like, oh, I got this property, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? I think I'll get you a zoning variance for that, because I think you're in a zone where I would it out, whatever. I've gotten those listings off of deals that another agent found.
Right, so
And
value.
yeah, because of value. So value is right, but I think that you could also, yes, you can get
Right, but that's another way to
another
add
way of
value.
value, right? So I never found the deals myself, but I always had the value from a different component. So it was all about, I can look at a deal the way most agents can't, right? Which is something that we're doing now. I do land use trainings with anybody that wants to talk about it. The other component of it is also like construction. A lot of people want to invest and they have no freaking idea how to do. So if you know how to do construction and you go and you find somebody that's an investor, you might not be the one to find the deal, but you could be like, look, I'll be your project manager and my fee is the listing, right? Because some agents, they find the deals and they don't make them sign listing packages. You know how many times, you know, agents will, I've taken, you know, but not that I've taken, but I've been given listings that other agents got the client and then they come at me, but it's like, yo, like, do better next time, get your listing signed, you know what I mean? So I think the value there is for sure is there, but it's finding the deals, but it's also like having the tools that they need. It's value. It's like, what can you give them?
Right.
Anybody theoretically can put a property on the market, right? But what can you do? Are you the best person at doing an open house? If that's what you want to be known for, right? Like maybe document, have this mega open house and show them how you got a bidding war going. Like there's so many things you can do outside the box, but at the end of the day, it's value. Show the client value and they'll keep coming back to you, even if you don't find a deal, you know?
And talking about with the investors, if you're the agent that finds the property for the investors, that's a potential for transactions. I would find the property for the investor, so I would represent the investor, I would get it
On the
both
buy.
ways.
Yep.
I would list the property, number 3, and before the property was done, I would have it under contract with the buyer.
Right.
So with one property that you find a buyer, that's potentially 4 transactions that you could do. I've sold the same house 4 times, sometimes it'll come back. There's houses that I've sold so many times in the same area that they'll call me and say, I looked at the records, you sold this house like 3 times, could you come and see it? Sure, I'm there. Like he knows a lot of the properties that I would sell would be the same thing. I would find it for the investor, I would list it, short sale, whatever it was, so I would get seller side, buyer side, I would bring the investor in, then I would list it, and while the investor was working, I already was getting the buyer,
Right, which was another relationship that I kind of built.
right? You
And then
know,
you can also rent it out after it's done.
Mhm.
And if it's
Exactly.
in multifamily, you can do.
There's so many ways
And
that you
if you
can
have
do
the
it.
buyer, when they wanna sell, that's a 5th transaction.
It happens, it happens a lot, it really does.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always said, I don't know how you guys feel about this. Like for me, it was always about doing units, especially when I first started in real estate. I felt like I said, look, doing like $1 million deals are great, right? We all look at the volume. And then of course, like the pay is nice. But I was always thinking about like building my business. I always said like I'd rather do like $300,000 deals before I did $1 million deal, because the way I look at it is those were 3 clients that were going to refer me that kind of helped for me to build my business out. And I always looked at it as like a family tree. Like, some of the agents on my team, I tell them the same thing. Like, just think of your business as a family tree. The more people you can touch, you extend your reach. And not just touch, but, look, we're speaking about relationships, right? And a relationship is built based on some of the things that these gentlemen are talking about, delivering that value, giving something up so that it's a 2-way street. And now you've really built a lasting relationship with that person so that they will refer you. They want to work with you. They want people that they know to work with you, and they don't want to send them anywhere else. And I think that's the way you get to a point where maybe with Shondell is where you can just,
Correct.
and even I say even Erica, like I talk to
It's
Erica all
everyone.
the time about it, where it's like 90% of their business is coming from referrals, right? There's a lot of different ways we can get business. But realistically, I think you guys would agree, in my opinion, the best business is the referral business.
But
Absolutely.
the reason the referrals are coming, it's coming because of hard work that we did and the
Absolutely.
value that we added. So I touched on how to think outside the box and maybe generate some leads. But after you generate those leads, you have to pound the pavement, you have to do the right thing. You have to pick your phone up, you know what I mean? You're emailing them, you're sending them things. You're out with them on Saturdays and Sundays instead of being down the shore in the summer. You know what I mean? And you're doing all of these things and you ultimately find them the house, you put them in it and you put the hard work in, you provided value. That's where the referrals kick in and the additional business kicks in.
Got you. So outside of the referrals, is there anything that you guys may be doing, secret sauce or like just out of the box things, like outside of just maybe reaching out to your sphere of influence? Is there anything that you guys are doing in terms of like resource to touch people that you haven't touched, maybe even attack kind of like your core area where you are? Like I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks back, and I had an epiphany that like I do a good amount of business in different areas in New Jersey, but I feel like I haven't really attacked where I live, which is I feel like a huge miss, right? Some of you guys probably definitely do it better than me. Me and George, we live in the same town. He's definitely doing it better than me. But when I think about walking my dog and seeing like listings come up that my name's not on it and etc., it makes me think about what am I doing in my general area to maybe like, okay, these people are not in my sphere, but then what am I doing to build those relationships so that they are in my sphere? Do you guys have anything that you do in terms of building that? Tito, like I know you make calls and stuff like that. You got some mailers maybe that go out. Like, can you speak to that?
So I wanted to touch on something that's not outside the box, but for the sphere,
Okay.
for past clients. And, most people should know about this already, and that I swear by the Reach app. If you're not familiar, it's called Reach. So what I do is perfect example for this week, right? We have Labor Day coming. I have a folder on the app. It's all my past clients. On Friday, or I'll wait till the day of the holiday, I'll say, hey, hope you and your family have a great holiday weekend. Be safe. Something as simple as that.
Sure.
Even if the client doesn't respond, it's still a touch. And I've been in so much business by just sending these texts like every holiday, every 3 months. Like the listing that I said I had in Edgewater, I messaged the guy 12 times. He didn't respond, but out of nowhere, he just messaged me one day, hey, I have a townhouse I want you to sell. When can you come by?
Now.
And then I said,
I'm on my way.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember
Right,
that.
I'm on my way.
I love that for hitting the spear. Even you could use it for, I use it for the past clients, that's where I really like it. But so what you were saying is, when we opened up Lifestyle, I wanted to make it a point, like, to really take over Sea Caucus or become like one of the major players in Sea Caucus. So what I did was I went with the circle prospecting tactic versus what I used to do, for sale by owner and expires. I wanted to hyper focus on Sea Caucus. So what I did was I picked a certain geographic in Sea Caucus. I started with mailers, right? And then what I was doing, I was door knocking the same area, sending the mailers to the same area, and cold calling the same geolocation. And I think I calculated it. I've sold like 7 to 9 houses within like a 4-block radius in Sea Caucus. So it doesn't happen right overnight, but throughout, what has it been, a year and a half since I've been here? That's 9 transactions in a year and a half in a 4-block radius. And it makes it easier too, because now the conversations, you either knocked on their door, you called them, they get a mailer from you. So after the time, it just builds. You do it consistently. The mailer once a month, the cold call every day. Eventually, when they go to sell, they're gonna think of you somehow. Your sign might be out there, they got your mailer, or you're bothering them on the phone.
No, definitely. I would say, like, what like I've seen, I could say I saw it with my own eyes. I've watched you do it, and I think you've been more consistent than anyone that I've ever seen. Not to say that you guys are not, but I've seen it with my own eyes. Doing it. I've seen him like take calls and he's like, "Hey, it's me again. You know it's me. You know it's coming." You know what I mean? And I think like I really admire you for that, because I think not many people want to do that, right? Some of us are afraid of like what people may think or how they see things, and it's encouraging to watch you to not let those limiting beliefs or not let that that kind of stuff keep us from like calling and touching those people, because at the end of the day, no matter what they say, maybe it's not that right time at that moment, but because you're constantly staying in touch with them, that moment is going to be right one day, and it's going to be
the
you.
key ingredient, because I noticed the shift in my business change when I wasn't, I don't want to use the word thirsty or desperate for the business right away. Like I'm doing it genuinely, right? I make jokes about it because I think it's kind of funny. Like, hey, it's me again. Or I knock on the door, like, say how you doing. Now I'm just building relationships, and that's what it's all about.
Planting seeds.
Yeah, planting seeds. If you go about it as planting seeds instead of trying to knock on that person's door and sell their house right away,
Right.
it's a long-term play.
Yeah, but and the super important part about that is the consistency. Because if you just send that flyer one time and you don't give that follow-up call, you're not going to reach out, then they forget about you. It's always who's the top of mind. Like who's the top of mind? Who do you think of when it comes to sell?
Yeah.
And if you stay in their face, regardless if they know you or not, they're gonna at least call you to see what you can do.
Sure.
Right? Because you're active. Like, oh yeah.
But everywhere I go, everyone knows that I'm a realtor. Every time I go to my nail salon, I leave my business card there. My nail lady, she always remembers me. And every time someone is talking about either selling or renting or buying, I'm the first person to come talk. Because I make sure that I leave my business card every time I go there.
Sure.
Remember, and I have my little thing, like the little holder.
Yeah.
I put my business. Restaurants, every time I go to a local restaurant, I leave a business card there.
Yeah.
Everyone knows around me that I'm a realtor.
Right.
I just wanted to say something. It's not something I've done, but something that one of my agents did that was hilarious. Different from the sphere of influence,
Sure.
secret sauce. She actually went to the dog park and put a note. She was throwing her dog a birthday party at the dog park.
Wow.
She set up a table and had little goodie bags for everyone with doggy treats and her business card.
Wow.
She got 3 clients.
Nice.
Wow.
It's a good one, man.
Huh?
Dogs and the
Thank
pets
you.
are-
Everybody was so excited. Everybody at the dog park was like, wow, thank you for inviting me. And she went alone, set up a table and made all these little bags with doggy treats, but they had her business card and that was her conversation. So the dogs are playing and she's connecting, getting clients. She got like 3 clients from it. No stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think rightfully so, because when you think about it, okay, it's not you just like meeting someone and then like asking for their business, right? She created something that gave some level of value, right? Hey, bring your dog, let's get to know each other, let's make, build a relationship, and it came from like, it's genuine, it's, you know what I mean, like, here's some treats, like, we all live here, like, she actually grew something, she you could see that the effort was put in.
Yeah.
I will say that when you, and it's called farming, right? You pick an area and you farm it all the time. When you farm something, you also want to have an identity. And I think to that point, she showed her identity, and to that point, it's sincere, right?
Correct.
The dog lover.
I saw, like, I've seen, obviously, we've all seen billboards, right? And like, I see some of them and it's just like, sell with me, right? And it's like, it's just like, you're aggressive in that. But then I also see people who, when they send something, like, look, I'm your neighbor or whatever, or you go to the door and you talk to them, you're a person. You're not just like
Sure.
something there. So I think that, yes, with every closing that you have or lifestyle has. So with circle prospecting, for those that are newer and don't know it, if you have a closing in that area, choose a mailing route around it and send them a postcard and say, hey, we just closed this property in your neighborhood. Look, if I close something, you could do a mailer on that. Anybody could do it and say, we just closed this property in your neighborhood. If you're interested in selling, or you have anybody else that wants to buy, whatever, right? There's all types of scripts that you can do for that, but that's what you do. The number one thing is just, you're not sending a mailer saying, hey, I want to sell your house. You're giving them information. Hey, I just sold this property for this much. People are nosy, so they want to know how much the property sold for. Always want to know that, right? And not everybody's up on it. So you sending them a card, they're gonna, oh, I know this house. I saw the sign. Oh, it sold for this much. Wow, right? So again, it's like value, but you got to stay up on it and be consistent. Do the mailers, the introduction, do the door knocking, door hangers, whatever. All
The
that
good thing is what kind of brings it all full circle, right? Like the brokerage, and I'm sure that eventually everybody will have it, but we just launched Chime, right? Chime does all of that and more. You can use postcards, you can dial, you can text, so you can touch these people in 3-4 different ways. And if you want to door knock, you can door knock too. But again, it will help you stay, and you can even market on Facebook, right? So like, if you do all of those things, now mind you, people will say that mailers don't have any return, right? You will probably beg to differ that it's not necessarily about getting that immediate return off of it, but just about keeping your face, right?
I can touch on that too, because I just had a call yesterday from my mailer. I probably listed like 1 or 2 that I know that they said, hey, I got your mailer, I'm curious to know. But like, I got the call yesterday. The value is, sometimes I put free seller consultation or curious to know what your home is worth. That's all the guy was interested in. Hey, I don't want to, lead you on. I'm not sure if I want to sell. This is what I do full time. I'll come by, I'll check it out. I'll tell you what it's worth. No harm, no foul. I met the guy. The guy loved me. He's not going to sell his house, but he told me today, people were in the office. He's like, I'm going to tell all my friends about you, everything. And who knows what that door is going to open right now.
And when he does want to sell,
Yeah.
you're the one,
Correct. You led with value. You led with value.
On that note, there's some times in the year where it's really good to prospect. So one of the times that I do it is during tax appeal season. So tax appeals, you can do it every year between February and April. So every year I send out my postcards like, look, it's tax appeal season. If you think your property taxes are too high, let me know. I'll do a free analysis for you. And it's a little time consuming, but look, we gotta put in time, right?
You want to
Want to stop? So that's the type of thing where it's like, yes, like free analysis, but every time you can do something, like I remember when Ida hit in September, I also hit all of my clients, like, if you need help with FEMA, there's some resources available for you, and I sent them the link to the FEMA application. So again, it's just the value, man. It's just like hitting people with things that you're not asking for something. Like you're indirectly saying, I'm here for it if you need it,
Sure.
but here's what I'm really here to do.
Right. I mean, I think that's the difference between like you're trying to sell them something versus like, listen,
Service.
we're talking about building a relationship, right? Somebody that you're actually trying to build a relationship with, you're going to be providing as much value as you can, whether it be your sphere of influence, family, friends, whatever that looks like. I'd say a couple.
Another thing too.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off. It's kind of corny, but I learned this from like my past brokerage. So I'm sure you've seen in my office, I have the lifestyle postcard with my business card on the back. Like, even if you just meet somebody new that you spoke to on the phone, whatever their name is, it was a pleasure chatting with you today. If you ever looking to buy, rent, or sell, you put your name, put your business card in there. And then like you could go to their doorstep, hand deliver it, send it in the mail. It's just like taking that extra step of writing a note. So it's something so simple that goes like tenfold.
So would you say enticing emotions out of people helps your business?
100%.
Because I feel like, with the books that I've read or like podcasts that I've listened to, you always want to, build rapport, and with building rapport, you wanna, grab them with emotions. So it's like, how do you get to that point? Because, in sales, everybody can be really robotic or it can be really redundant, and that's why a lot of people don't wanna listen to individuals like you and I. So what makes you stand out? What do you do that brings that feeling that people want?
Right, so on the distress side, again, I'm not talking traditional now, just on the distress side, I taught my team who was cold calling, and I was taught you always recognize pain, right? You figure out what the pain is, and then you solve the answer for their pain to alleviate it. In my case, it was most of the time they're losing the property. They could have been either getting divorced, which I've been through a lot. Crazy stories with that. Somebody passed away, and now they're the executor of the estate, and they have to figure it out. Or it could be, we just got behind, and we don't want to mess up our credit, right? So like you come in, and if you have the answers for those things, or if there were some cases where we would mediate ex-husband and wife, right? Like, don't worry, we're gonna get it done. You don't have to deal with her. She's not gonna have to deal with you, and we're neutral, right?
Security.
Right. So like, and if they trust that like, okay, you're a neutral party in this, or okay, they're gonna help just put this problem at ease and make it go away. A lot of times, you can get business that way too. And it just be sincere, right? Like at the end of the day, we know ultimately you're not in real estate to help save lives, right? Let's be honest. But if you focus with the intent on helping your client, you will make a lot of money. So you're not here to do that, but if you focus on your client, you will make a lot of money. So just put the emphasis on what does your client need? What does your client want, right? And why do they want it? Some clients, they overlist their property. I've been in listing appointments where it's like, damn, so they really want like 100,000 over ask, and you ask like, why? And then they may have a reason, or I'm relocating to this state, or whatever. So like, you find out what. Now, mind you, they're not going to get that 100 grand, but it's up to you to help them understand, right? Like why this is your value, and this is the value that I'm going to bring to help you at least close to get your money to do whatever you need to do, right? And it's not even about the transaction anymore. It's about, this person is really trying to help me move away. I had a client in Union. She wanted to move out of state, move to New York. So we weren't even talking about selling the house. We were talking about what she's going to do in New York and what she wanted to do in Hawaii, right? Like not even about the transaction. Right. So like once you build that rapport and build that relationship, the business, you will get there.
I agree. I mean, talking about, pulling somebody's guard down, like she made a point of, people feeling like it's not genuine or you're just trying to sell them something. But it's, again, all we're doing is like dancing around the conversation of like building that relationship and building it the right way.
Right. Just to make someone like you.
Right.
Right. What it comes down to.
And be
It's-
relatable.
it's
He
you
tried,
being yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Being genuine.
And George,
Absolutely.
and George touched on that, being like because of whatever you're the dog party. Yeah, so that I think is important. Yeah,
You want to do business with people you like, right? We all do that. We all do. You go get your nails done somewhere, you're not going back. And somebody cuts your hair and they disrespect, you're not going, like, it's.
I guess being genuine, being who you are, and because people can sense when you're coming at them and you're trying to do whatever you're trying to do to them. You have to be genuine, be who you are. I think that we service clients and we may sell ourselves, but we service people. And if they feel comfortable with you, like a lot of times as agents, we become therapists,
Yeah.
counselors. As soon as they're sitting in your desk, in your
Priest,
office,
too.
you're hearing all their stuff, right?
Therapist and a priest and a bar. You
name it. Yeah. I mean, so that's who we really are. We're there to be like the jack of all trades for them, where we service them. And if they feel comfortable with you, they open up, they trust you, they'll work with you. That's why I say buyer's guide, right? How many children you have? Now you get personal with them, but now they feel comfortable because you know who they are and where they're coming from. So I highly say just be genuine, be who you are. People can sense when you're trying to sell them something, when you're desperate and when you're trying to be scripted. They know that it's, you know.
I think that's part of adding the value.
One of, so all kind of correlates to one of the questions that you asked, right? So how do I be hyper local in my neighborhood?
Yep.
Your neighbors, right? So when you're walking your dog, just talk to people. Just talk to people, say hello to people. Those are, and then, on day 3, hey Kathy, you might just have a second. Oh, what's up, Mom? Just want to let you know I do real estate. I want to give you a couple of my cards. If you hear of anyone, looking to buy, rent, sell, please, think of me. And you give her a handful of your cards, and guess what Kathy's gonna do? She's gonna hand them out for you.
Yeah.
It's just talking to people, and she sees you walking your dog every day. She's like, wow, look at that nice guy walking that dog. And that's what she thinks in her head. Now you stopped, we had a 2-minute conversation with her.
Yeah.
And you just build from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge point, right? So one thing we can say is like, you don't have to make it super complicated either, right? I
Right.
think
It's
sometimes
not.
we drive right past the simple things.
Correct.
I'm speaking from experience, from my own mistakes of like kind of reflecting and going like, like I walk my dog and I'm like, there's like people walking, I'm like walking, I'm like, yeah, what's up? You know what I'm saying? But like, it's not, for the business that we're in, that's not really the way we should conduct ourselves, right? If I was kind of like just around something that felt more like a real estate related situation or environment, I wouldn't be as closed off. It's just not the best way to be, I'd say, day to day. So I give you guys a few things that I used to do, and then I'll say, one other thing that I think we all should make a habit. So I still do these. So every like Halloween, we're all out. George knows on George's block, they shut the block down. It's a wild situation where we kind of live, but we pass a ton of candy out. And what I do is I always put them in some kind of container or plastic, and my business card is in there. So that's one good way to do it. The other way that I kind of build with like meeting people that I've just never ever come across, no matter where it is. I'll sit at a coffee shop. So I'll sit at Dunkin' Donuts or like a Starbucks. I'll buy $100 gift card. I'll give it to the girl at the register, and I'll tell her just to continue to swipe it until it's done. And then when they ask who bought the coffee, I usually stay there and I'll work from there until it's done. So 100, 150, 200, whatever you guys can do. And then they'll go, she'll go like, the gentleman right there took care of the coffee for you. And it's a good way again to build a relationship, right? I provided some type of value. I didn't try to like interrupt their day or butt in. It was kind of like, hey, look, I appreciate it. They come over, they thank me for the coffee. It's no problem. I do this every so often. It's nice to meet you. If you ever need anything in terms of real estate, here's my card. It's a pleasure to meet you. So I used to do that. And here and there, I used to also, if I was in a drive-through, I would pay for the person's food that was behind me. And then I would just leave my card. So just thinking of different ways that you could do things. And then also like, to me, it's kind of, it's giving back. Like this is a business of people. And if you're not putting the people first and what matters to them first, if you're not leading with some kind of value and care, I don't really think it's going to work out the way you need it to. You're not going to really maximize on your business the way you need to. And then the last practices I'll give you that I would say that, I don't know if you guys do it. I know I get away from it a bit. Is passing out like business cards, right? It's so simple. But if you're hoarding a lot of business cards, like if you order them and you don't use them a ton, and I've heard people saying, and it's even come out of my mouth, like, I text it a lot, I send it a lot digitally. Then you're not really using them to the best of your ability. You should be passing those cards out left and right. I know I've been like on business trips, or I've traveled where I made it my business. I said, look, I'm gonna make sure that on this trip, like I'm handing out 50 cards, I'm handing out 25 cards. Like I'm gonna connect with this many people because it's gonna extend your reach. It may not even be a client. Who knows? It could be another realtor. It could be somebody else that you can end up, using as a resource, or they need you as a resource to put deals together. So I would say use some of those practices, definitely passing your business card out. If you got 1,000, you should be driving towards getting rid of them and buying them again. If you have them sitting around, you're not really taking advantage of having those. But I would say we should close out. If you guys want to give like kind of like your last words on or any advice that you could give anybody watching, everybody in the brokerage that will watch this, just on what they could do again to cultivate relationships, work on their sphere, and help forward to build their business.
Well, all this is great that we're giving them all the knowledge, right?
Sure.
But if there's no database, then there is no sphere of influence, because you don't have no one to call or come back to. They seen you, but that was it. If you see them, get their name, get their email address. They don't want to give you their phone number, get their email address. Take notes and be organized. Have everything in a CRM. If Chime is out there, whatever you use as a CRM is super an Excel spreadsheet. Super. That's how I started with my Excel sheet. Super important. You can do all these things, but if you don't have a follow-up system and you don't have yourself organized and you don't have them anywhere, you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
But just showing your face.
Yes.
And a sphere of influence is just having their contact information where you can do touch point on a day-to-day basis. And I say touch point is part of working with your sphere of influence, speaking to people every day, even if it's 10 people or people that you've already connected with. Even if it's just to say, hey, how are you? Hello. But if you don't have their contact information, you're not organized, all the effort that you're putting into everything that you're trying to do to get business, you'll lose it, right?
Correct.
Because there's no follow-up system.
Gotcha.
And again, everywhere you go, make sure you leave your card. You said,
100%.
don't be shy.
That's
I'm a
right.
realtor. If you guys need anything, sale, buying, rental, make sure that you guys, everywhere you go to dinner, if you go to do your hair, if you go to do your nails, anywhere you go, make
Drop
sure
a
you
card.
bring your card.
Got it. Give me and George, we're gonna start doing it.
I have a little recommendation too, because I used to be totally on the other side of it. When I first started, I was kind of like your mindset, but I wasn't doing the family tree thing. Like I just wanted to do volume, get deals, and I wasn't being genuine and I wasn't trying to help out. I would say for new people, become a member in the community right away, wherever you are. Like, we just did that back to school fundraiser. I don't even know how many people that I spoke to that I didn't even meet in the community. Volunteer to be a coach if you're into sports, like anything along those lines to be a part of the community that you're in, it'll be the game changer.
That's good advice, man.
Giving back,
Making,
Thanksgiving, turkey drives.
So same thing, just making genuine connections. And people will be your advocates. So when you make those connections, it's just me connecting with George, as a person, right? So it doesn't have to be real estate right away. Just saying hello to him, and then it'll lead to a 2-minute conversation. Next day, it's a 10-minute conversation. You get to know a neighbor or somebody you see on a wall, whoever it is. But that person, once you convert them, they're your advocates. Those are the people that are going to give you their business. They're going to contact you and say, my aunt's thinking of selling her house. The woman down the street, her husband just died. She needs to sell. And that's where the business comes from.
Yeah, and I would to add to that, I would say when you do get a listing or you do have a deal, you gotta market it like it's the $100 million deal that you got.
Absolutely.
In order to get the next deal, because again, I feel like people respect action, right? And the doers, right? So whatever you're doing, if you whatever you got, one rental, one listing, whatever it is, maximize that to your fullest potential and continue to follow up with the people who, like Zito said, if you have people in your database, follow up. So many people lose out on opportunities because the follow-up is so scarce, right? Or not there. And I've lost deals on follow, so I'm talking from experience. And that's
Me
like
too. Me too.
I almost in the gut, it hurts it in the gut when you do it, but
You see that for sale sign go up.
that's what I would say, and again, being a realtor is one thing, being a marketer is a whole different type of skill set that I'm still working on. I feel like I'm not good at it at all, but I'm working on it, right? But, try to get better at marketing yourself.
Gotcha.
On those lines, I think for the agents, my tip would be when you're new, start with putting in the time. So all of these great tips, whatever takes your time, that's your currency. Do it. When you start doing deals, put in money. Make a budget. Like, look, we make decent money, and whatever it is, if you made 6K, 8K, 10K on a deal, take 10% of that. like allocate it, actually have allocation, because I think a lot of realtors don't plan for spending the way we should. We run our own businesses, but people don't run it like a business,
Right.
right? We don't have a marketing budget. If I ask every single agent, most people don't have an actual budget.
Right.
So if I say to you, every single closing you have, allocate 15% for marketing and then let them figure out where to spend it. Just get the money aside and then spend it, right? That's how you're gonna be able to do it, because you're gonna look at it like, okay, this money is earmarked for advertising. What can I spend it on? All right, so am I gonna buy backpacks and do a community event? Am I gonna go buy some $100 gift cards and do coffee? Am I gonna do a mailer, an EDDM? Am I gonna do a billboard? It's all gonna depend, but know that you're putting that money aside to spend it, and know that you're not gonna get a return immediately. But it's one, building your brand, and two, it's creating opportunities for you to make new business. So think that money is spent already, and then figure out where the best place to put it. That would be my advice.
Nice. Well,
Everything is, everything's planted seeds. So the day you plant the seed isn't the day that you eat.
correct.
It's
It's a fact.
Yeah.
months.
You gotta
Very
water
rare.
it, you gotta water it.
It's correct. It's, you know, you have to plant it and cultivate it, right? So it's 8 months later, it's a year later, it's 14 months later. But if you cultivate it, it'll 100% come back.
Even if you're cold calling, my average conversion was like 3 to 5 touches before that first phone call to the time that they're like, all right, come to the house, we want to meet. So, yeah, plant those seeds.
Yeah.
It's
Gardeners out there, you gardeners out there.
I mean, it's, you know, it's work. It's work to be put in, but that's what we're here for. I think is when you try to skip that part of it, is where it's not as genuine as it is, when you're actually putting in the effort and putting in the work.
And I think it takes 90 days to see results. 90 days from when you start putting, you start making cold calls. In 90 days, you'll start seeing results. Don't expect it in a week or two. If you do, that's great.
Great.
But I think there's a 90-day turnaround. I always tell, the agents, within 90 days of you doing something consistently, you'll start reaping the benefits.
Gotcha. Well, I think, that wraps it up. I think it was a really good conversation around building relationships, something that you all got, all of you guys can take away in terms of what you can do in your business. A lot that was said here. The recording will be sent out. I encourage you guys to review it and watch it again, so you can apply a lot of it to your business. If you catch any of us around, you have some questions, feel free to reach out. If you don't see us, get our information, text us, call us, email us. We're here to help. So thanks for coming. Thanks for you guys watching. And until next time.
Yes.
Thank you.